Greetings, honored listener, and welcome back to ActiveImagine, a podcast dedicated to art, artists, and their thoughts and journeys, as well as aesthetics, process, and of course, the realm of the great unconscious that we aim to explore through these conversations. My name is Alex. I'm an author and digital artist, as well as owner of Directum Art, which represents in many ways the exploration of the deep, dark ocean of the unconscious. If you're listening on YouTube, please find the links in the description of this video, as each episode contains very useful places to find mine and the other artists' works, websites, and places you can support them. And if you're listening on Spotify, do check out the description. I would try to add links there, but YouTube would probably be an easier channel and way for you to discover more information about the artists that I feature, and also their own channels, which I will also feature on the Directum Art channel on YouTube. My fourth guest today is Gordy Craw. He's a freelance artist and animator that I've had the honor to meet at one of his own exhibitions, where I was deeply impressed by his work, which he will talk about during this episode. Gordy is a very skilled artist in the sense that he has something to say, and he says it very skillfully, with a solid grasp on a technique, which is something that I've been wanting to explore and talk about since the very first episode. The themes of his works, especially the exploration and interpretation of the dragon archetype, is something that really stuck with me because I'd never heard something like this before. So I'm sure that you will really enjoy hearing about this too. Now, that has been my introduction, but now I'll let Gordy take the stage. So if you'd like to introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about what kind of art you do, as well as your overall experience, and we can take it from there.
Of course. Well, first of all, thank you for having me on. It's a total pleasure. I really enjoyed speaking with you at the exhibition as well. So I think we're going to have a good conversation. So my name is Gordon Crawford, but my artist name is Gordy Craw. I work as an artist and illustrator. I'm also an award-winning animator. I can say that. I've won one award, and it was a long time ago, but it sounds good. So, and I work out of Dundee in Scotland. I've been a freelance artist for coming on 12 years now. And I guess a good way to describe the work I do, my personal work, I kind of split my time between a few different things. So there's some commission work. I always try and have like a personal project that runs in the background that I can exhibit throughout maybe like every 2 years. And that work is the work we should probably talk about. And I would describe that as quite intricate pen drawings, mostly. There's a little bit of watercolor that's kind of started to show in more recent work. And they're heavily, I guess you could say all the work is a kind of grand concept. So that's what gets me excited for doing work. I like to have a problem to solve, or some issues, or something that I find quite complicated. And maybe because I'm quite a visual person, I can work through these issues visually, and that really helps kind of concrete how I feel about them. It also creates work that maybe wouldn't just come out of nowhere. It wouldn't be the first thing that would come to mind. So a lot of it's quite cryptic and very deliberate and planned. I think that's probably quite a good explanation of the type of work that I do.
You you said you're a visual person. This actually reminds me that this is kind of like a question that I think it's really important to ask in the context of this show, which has quite a big focus on the way that artists interact with the unconscious, um, which is that abstract world that produces these images, or any sorts of art. So when you say that you're a visual person, how would you describe the way that you interact with your own art? So do you see the shapes in your mind's eye? Do you see the colors, or how would you kind of explain that?
I would say it's quite different. It doesn't always follow the same pattern. Maybe it's the best way to explain it. And you're absolutely right. The kind of when you have an idea that seems to come fully formed, I've always found this quite interesting. Whether it's in like art, or I like, one of my other loves is playing music. So they're quite, that I can relate both of those directly to each other. You can have like a song or something that feels like it's just been airdropped into your head, like preformed almost already. So sometimes, and that's the kind of lucky times, it's like your brain has subconsciously worked out a pretty strong image already. But then other times, I have to, for me anyway, I have to kind of work at it. So my process, I don't know if you want to talk about that later on, but my process at the moment is very almost quite methodical, because I'm trying to say very particular things in my work. So I have to kind of write those down and then think of imagery that that best suits it as a metaphor. And if some of those things overlap, then I know that I'm onto something. If if there's like three different subjects that I want to combine into one picture, and they all can be related to, I don't know, like a bird, something to do with how a bird works or how it works in nature, then you're onto a winner, because that can say a lot of things in a simple image. So it's difficult to, I think, abstractly. Essentially, there's a lot of a lot of time as an artist where you're just kind of sitting staring into nowhere, kind of trying to form these images loosely in your mind. And I can't speak for everyone, but for me, there's never like a sharp image in my mind's eye that I recreate. It always transforms as you start working into it or sketching. So it's a part of a longer process for me.
Would you say that this process has evolved throughout the years, like compared to maybe the first time that you started taking art seriously, for example? Like if you were to look back to when you first started and compare yourself to where you are now in terms of that process, would you say it has evolved or changed?
Yeah, I would say definitely. I'd be upset if it hadn't, maybe.
Yeah.
Much like anything else, I think if you aren't constantly changing, then there's something maybe wrong. So yeah, just now it's way more methodical, and I might change that as time goes on, because I think in my experience, it's useful to either learn kind of a new skill or move your art in a certain direction that's slightly uncomfortable. So with me, I've never thought I was very good with color, and that has been a new little journey to trust myself as well. So pushing that kind of forward, and maybe, I guess I started off drawing very kind of scribbly. It was very loose. Really, I used to use like 6B pencils, so everything was really dark, slightly smudged, quite raw looking. And I guess you could argue that maybe had a bit more energy around it. Whereas now it's very, very careful pen drawings where I'm trying not to make any mistake. So it's evolved, I guess, yeah, it's kind of pulled in the other direction. I guess what I was trying to say is that I'm not ruling out that I might not go back to that and see if there's a combination of those two styles that will form something else. If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So it's always combining like new and old things that you've learned to create new things. So so that's the kind of idea, but it's definitely evolved. And also, I mean, I'm not sure. I think I maybe mentioned this when we talked in person, but when, like, especially during like university, I was straight out of school. I was an idiot. I mean, I really didn't know much about anything, and I almost wasn't that interested. I just kind of, I was interested in what came out of, I guess, what naturally came to mind when I was creating art. But now I feel like I just am, for whatever reason, just age, I'm more interested in almost like in a broad range of different subjects, and these things all start collecting and going into a bank that you can use to explore through your art.
Yeah, that's a beautiful concept. It's like you're assembling, grouping together different concepts in a data bank that then you can go and pick out of or combined.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I guess as well as that, it's that idea. I mean, people talk about this in music quite a lot as well. I think there's a saying, I don't know who said it. It's roughly rubbish in, rubbish out. So if you're like, your inspiration, although sometimes it feels like it comes from the ether, it's definitely, if whatever you think about it, it's drawn from a collection of experiences that you've had and music perhaps, or art that you have consumed, that it all adds up. So if you're not experiencing or interested in, different ideas and conversations, then you've got less, or in my opinion, you have less to draw from.
This is like the artist's toolkit to be interested in a variety of different things. But you also mentioned that you have a formal education in art. Is that correct? Is that?
Well, I studied at Dunker and Jordanstown, and did animation.
Okay.
So it was all drawn animation. So there was it was quite it was good. It was quite tedious at times. There's a lot. I mean, there's, at the very least, you're putting in 12 drawings to make 1 second.
Wow.
So, and that's like, I mean, I guess they did encourage us to work, to collaborate as teams. But again, I was quite interested in doing my own thing. So yeah, and a lot of people did their own films. But yeah, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work.
Would you recommend that path that you've taken, like the formal education path, for maybe an artist that is interested in specializing in drawing? Like, would you recommend? Yeah.
Sorry, carry on, Alex.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was just that. Would you recommend like a formal education in that sense, given your experience?
I think it's got its uses. It's definitely not necessary. I don't think. Not now. Probably not now. Realistically.
Yeah.
So I mean, you can learn. I mean, obviously, the internet has opened up huge amounts of knowledge and expertise from all over the world. You can watch pretty much how to do any technique. You can go on courses online. So I mean, from that point of view, you could learn. I still think there's value in, I guess the value of going through like university maybe is that you are in a creative atmosphere in real life, which is different from maybe doing an online course. So just having those relationships, kind of going back to what we were saying, you're introduced to people who are different from you. You can't block them because they are in front of you.
Yeah.
So you have to learn to talk to people who are really different, who have got different ideas about what art is or what makes good art. So you have to question. I mean, from that point of view, it's really useful. Like any, I think it's important to be social, especially as an artist, because you can, like, you draw your influences from other people as well. A lot of the learning that we did was from each other as well. So it's not necessary. I'm sure there's lots, especially now, there'll be loads of very successful artists who have not trained as artists. So yeah, I mean, it's got good points, but definitely not necessary, I would say.
But it helps with that toolkit that we were talking about before, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's definitely. It'll probably. Yeah. I mean, it'd probably do you more good than not going. But, yeah, it's not for everyone either. It's not for everyone. There's a lot of kind of pressure, maybe at the side. But I mean, in terms of, guess what I would encourage is the important part is to be quite disciplined in learning the kind of fundamentals. And I know there's some people that kind of maybe think that's quite an old-fashioned view of how to approach art, but if you've got good drawing skills, so if you learn the shading, you learn pen control, you learn how to make good lines. It's just practice. I mean, you don't have to go to uni to do any of that, but if you do that, then it gives you the foundation. Like, those skills transfer into lots of other aspects of art. So understanding like tone and color give you more options later. It's that whole thing to, you've got to learn the rules before you can break them.
Yeah. That does make sense.
I agree with that. But yeah, going back to what you said, I don't think a formal education is essential, but there's a lot of good things that can come out of it, especially the kind of social aspect of it, and even just having freedom from, like, a lot of people go there right after school, like I did, and a big part of kind of moving out of your parents' home is quite liberating. You find out what you think about things, and you've got to find your way in the world. All these things are important, just on a kind of grand level, not even on an artist level. So
yeah, it helps with growth for sure. Absolutely. Yeah. So when I met you, you were doing an exhibition, and you said that you've been sort of doing these exhibitions every 2 years. Is that something that you mentioned before?
Well, I'm trying to. So this one's taken a wee bit longer.
So you have some experience as putting on exhibitions.
Yeah. Well, this one's my what was this one? Fourth.
Okay.
Fourth one. So I don't know. I didn't mention already. I split my time between doing commission and personal work. I also work for a mental health charity called Art Angel, which is it's not art therapy, but it is using art as therapy, if you know what I mean. Art therapy is like a very particular way of approaching art. This is more of a community setting that has like art as the backdrop for it. So we've put on exhibitions through them as well. So learning, encouraging people to create work and select work and stuff as well. So there's been a few exhibitions outside of my work as well.
Yeah, that's beautiful. It's like sort of the art equivalent of working with a community, right? It's like kind of like in service to a community.
I honestly can't praise the place more. It's got it right. It's done something really special, I think. I'm it's a total privilege to work there. And also, again, kind of going back to what we were saying about the university and like being exposed to different styles and ways of thinking. The participants that go to Art Angel are all like super, super talented. When I started, I naively, maybe slightly arrogantly, thought that I'd be giving like art advice to people. But what has happened is I've learned loads from everyone that goes. I guess they're creating art from a pure standpoint as well. They're not looking to make it into work. They're making it to either from an emotional place or just out of joy. So there's a fearlessness there as well, where it's just trying every possible technique. Everyone just goes for it. So I've learned so much from the people there, and not to mention just the kind of the friendships that I've made as well. So,
yeah, that sounds really beautiful. Kind of makes me think that. Sorry,
I didn't mean to interrupt. Sorry, carry on.
No, you weren't. Yeah, it's just it makes me think about the concept of the difference between digital art and this interaction with other artists. And this is definitely a concept that I want to touch on again once we discuss the AI art. But before that, I wanted to delve into your the concepts that you've introduced me when I met you at your exhibition, which has to do with your exploration of the archetypes and the archetype of the dragons, which was the main theme of your exhibition and which really, really appealed to me. So that was the first time that I heard an idea like that, and it really, really stuck with me. I think it's definitely something special. So obviously the artwork that I will feature on this video is part of that collection and is part of that representation of the dragon archetype that that you've been working on. So would you like to talk a little bit about that, to kind of explore it in the same way that you've explained it to me, as well as the kind of the history behind that idea and what made you want to explore that in this way?
Of course. Well, thank you. That was a nice thing to say. And also, yeah. So I'd mentioned that the work that I do has like a grand kind of concept, and from that kind of branches out, I guess, different sections of an idea that I can explore. So I did 9 pieces for Modern Dragons. The idea was, I guess, fairly simple. I'd read an article by an anthropologist that's name has escaped me. I'm sorry, but I'll maybe email it to you later. You can you can link it. But his theory was that dragon myths are like a collection. So dragons themselves have been, or like a collage of our ancient ancestors' worst enemies. So reptiles, fire, eagles, snakes, crocodiles, tigers with like claws, and they've created an ultimate obstacle or thing to overcome into story. So I really like that idea. That it was basically everything that would possibly that could harm our species that we'd be scared of into one creature. And it made me think, what would modern dragons look like if we used the same metric, if we used the same kind of idea? So I first had to break down. I mean, it's easy to point the finger and see what's wrong with the world. So I tried not to be too negative, but so the I guess the one that you're featuring is called Megaid or Mega ID. So I guess I'll try and loosely explain how it looks, maybe, and then we can go into some make sense. So I know you've seen it, but for anyone listening, so it's the idea was political polarization is the subject that I wanted to touch on this one.
Political polarization.
Yes.
Yeah.
But more particular, an idea called Mega ID. So the idea was an author called Liliana Mason, who wrote a book called Uncivil Agreement, which is really, really interesting, but I would highly recommend listening to her talk on podcasts. You'll be able to find them. Because the book is quite dry and goes through a lot of statistics. It's quite hard to process. Anyway, worth reading anyway. But her idea was that be more about policy, and people used to change their vote more easily not that long ago, whereas so you'd have like non-partisan voters, and now as we all can see, it was very much drawn lines in the sand. So it's either you kind of have a allegiance to a political party, and her idea is that each political party doesn't just have policy, but has adopted our identity. Like, so let's take the right in general. The right are normally associated with religion. They are typically more royalist. So they look at tradition, and they want to keep. They're more fan. They're closer fans of like industry. So these are kind of ideas that make us who we are. And if one party has adopted all of the things that make you who you are, when your party loses, it's not just a political party and a few policies that aren't going to go through. It's everything that you believe in. It's everything that makes you you. And she suspects that maybe this wasn't designed deliberately. It's probably just evolved naturally. That it's because if you are emotionally engaged, so if it's things to do with you personally, then you vote more. So how do you make this into an image was the problem. So I decided to go with a horse type creature, mostly because of the kind of betting on which horse is going to win a race, like a political race. So that was the kind of foundation. And the horse creature is splitting in two. So both, as I guess, from its chest up until its head, which kind of splits into two horns, that are very far apart from each other. And each side of the creature is made up of little motifs and symbols that represent left and right in politics. And as they stretch up towards the kind of pointed horns, they become, it's like a bloody tip, which just symbolizes if you push left or right in two extreme direction, then it both ends, well, it ends badly. Seen that throughout history. And what else is there? There's its tail's made up of kind of torn Union Jacks, more to symbolize the flag waving that a lot of people do when it comes to their political allegiances. And to finish it off, there are kind of circling vultures above it, or buzzards, and that was just to represent the people who benefit from the division. So the people who maybe run their political careers on creating and stirring up division between people. A lot of the populist movements are kind of doing that right now. Or the media companies who obviously clearly benefit from creating division. I think that sums up and this applies to all 9 of the different pictures. They all tackle different things. Was that clear? Did that make sense?
I hope so. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, it's a really, really interesting concept. That's why I wanted to explore it. I've never quite seen anything like this before, and especially the way that you represent it, the way that you've created this, even on a technical level, is really, really impressive. So,
Thank you.
yeah, there's so much detail going on there, and I really like that you combine that technical proficiency with such a powerful concept, because it really tells a story.
I'm really glad you said that, because that is important to my tastes.
Yeah,
and they might change. They might change as time goes on. But for me, what I'm aspiring to is to make something that looks good. Obviously, that there is a certain amount of skill on show, but also means something. Quite deliberately means something. So thanks, Alex. Yeah, that's what I was hoping. For.
Yeah, I think meaning is definitely something that keeps appearing in the conversations that I'm having here, because nowadays it feels like maybe it was like this in the past as well, but maybe not to this same degree. It feels like the art, and I don't know if you agree with this, but it feels like to me like the art that powers the entertainment industry is so infused with politics, and especially with identity ideas, which kind of I think is also representative. I mean, it's part of it is the title of your artwork, but it's to such a strange degree that it's almost as if art is kind of like a slave to it almost, you know. It's very strange what's going on nowadays, and I see it so much in entertainment, especially. It just feels like it has to say something specific about who, not even who we are, but it's like who we should be. And maybe maybe it's always been like this in some way, but it really feels a lot more jarring to me nowadays than it has ever been before, especially because of where art is nowadays. Given its interlacing, interweaving with technology, that it's and also the culturally speaking, at least here in the West, it's like where we are in regards to religion and the sacred and the disappearance of that, which I think creates this kind of like a gap, this meaninglessness overall, which is then replaced. I think the gap is filled, so to speak, by this political idea of power and of identity. This is kind of what it seems to me. So yeah, in regards to that, I'm curious how do you navigate this, especially the idea of meaning in relation to this? Because in order to represent artworks that are so charged with meaning, because you do create meaning, you represent it literally. I'm guessing you have to be able to observe this in an objective way and not be swept in it, right? For example, to represent something like the mega identity artwork, you have to be able to see the division, you have to be able to see the split, which means that you have to be on the external side of it. So I'm wondering where you are right now in terms of that, or in terms of I guess your view on the world, your view on meaning, and your view especially on the sacred, if that question makes sense.
Yeah. So there's a few things there, actually. I know what you mean about, especially art within like media, like art direction. And it probably in some way has always, like, art and literature and music reflect the time that you live in. Like for quite obvious reasons, you live in that time. That's what you observe. So that's what you draw on. And I think it's important that that artists. I would much rather that artists make something that they believe in than maybe just parrot back stuff that they think they should maybe say. Or and there's also a place for making art that doesn't have any meaning. Like I understand that, like, especially my process would probably completely zap all the fun out of it for some other people. So some people just want to take paint straight to a canvas and just go kind of raw emotion into it and see what comes out, and that's where the joy is for them. But in terms of, like, I think it's important. I think it's a part of an artist's job to try and say something, because it's such a powerful way to communicate. But kind of going back to what you were saying, I guess me, like, personally, I've been accused of sitting on the fence quite a lot in the past by friends. But I think it's just the way I'm wired, that I can kind of see both people's opinions, not on everything, and I definitely I do have strong opinions on some things, but I understand why people might think a certain way, and I can see their argument a lot of the time. So when I'm thinking about these type of ideas, I kind of try to zoom out as like an alien looking down on everything, like I'm not a part of it, to try and see a pattern, or patterns that you might be blinded to because of, if you're emotionally charged into certain ideas. So yeah, it's difficult to kind of navigate through all that. I think it's important, if you can, as if you're trying to create ideas, much like I guess much like someone writing a script for a drama or something. Like, to make believable characters, the writers have to really try and embody that character, and by doing that, you've humanized them. So there's a lot, not always, but any kind of film series that's worth watching, the characters have a lot of depth to them, and it's not just kind of black and white, which is basically how I view world anyway. I just find it so, like, there's so many different parts that make up the whole. It's so intricate. It's also one of the reasons I make really. I mean, I like making intricate art, but part of that is, I think it like mirrors how complicated things normally are. There's not just like a a formula that explains everything. So
yeah,
you've got to take all the nuances and into account, I think, when you're looking at like any kind of social issues or political, and trying to communicate that through your work. I think it's important to try and be as balanced as possible.
Yeah, one of the foundational core structures or I was going to use the word belief, but it's not belief. It's techniques maybe, or things to understand within the realm of psychoanalysis, which is also the realm of archetypes, is the necessity of understanding the way that these complex psychological forces act on us, because if you don't understand them, they end up controlling you. So one of the core lessons from Carl Jung, for anyone who is into psychoanalysis, they definitely have heard of him, is that if you don't work on becoming aware of the unconscious forces acting out in your life, they will essentially control you, and you will follow this path that is created by these forces. I'm trying to put this into like as simple words as possible, even though these are very complicated, not complicated, complex topics. But yeah, this is where the idea of the archetype kind of comes in, and that you're exploring. And I think it's really, really, really useful to for anyone, artist or non-artist, to start to detach themselves from, in a way, from the world, and from the patterns that the world plays out, but also at the same time from the patterns that they play out in their own lives, because only then you can, when you stop identifying with things, with beliefs, with convictions, you will start to see them objectively. And I think if that's something that you're kind of bringing out through your art, it's really something very valuable, because it's something that I try to remember and I try to teach as well. So because this has been extremely useful in my own life. So yeah, that's definitely very relevant.
Yeah, and I mean, I would encourage anyone to read into the archetype idea as well. I mean, I'm not sure, like a lot of these things, like I never completely 100% buy into all of it, but it's important to, like, in terms of like being inspirational or giving you ideas, these thoughts are like, they're very powerful, especially if you're, again, if you're an artist, that there's certain like running stories in the background that last the test of time, that connect on much deeper levels back through our evolutionary kind of history. These are all like cool ideas that can help give you, or maybe you want to create your own archetypes, so like, I think just being interested in, like, in psychology as well, or all and philosophy, all these things are so important, and like, and you don't have to. No one's saying that you have to be an advocate for them, but to recognize that these are the possibilities, and to recognize them in yourself as well, I think is like it's quite a powerful a driver for ideas, and
Yeah.
ideas is what it's all about, really.
Yeah.
If you're trying to do art, ideas the main thing.
Yeah.
In my opinion, anyway. In my opinion, that's the driver. That's what gets me up in the morning. There's a good idea. I want to that gives you energy.
Yeah. Ideas and stories. But to that, I would add also technique and skill, because, and this is something that I really want to touch upon. Ideas are one thing, and they are the abstract forces that come from the unconscious, and in the forms of, in the shapes of images, colors, music, everything that creates meaning in a way. But it's the artist's job to be able to put that into the physical world, to kind of translate those forces into the physical world. And this is where skill comes in, which is something that we've touched upon before. But to this, we have entered a very interesting new age, especially with the rise of this. Well, I guess we can make the argument that this age has started quite a while ago. Since we have been introduced to Photoshop a while back, which is something that me and my friend were joking about the other day when we were talking about AI art, and he was making the point that, think about Leonardo da Vinci, seeing Photoshop. It's like you spend a whole half a day mixing colors and someone just applies a gradient. So so there is that, but definitely there is the fact that this is speeding up, this technology is speeding up at such a crazy rate, and it's now making it's almost as if like it's replacing the need for skill, right? Because you've seen it, we've all seen it. The image generating technology, and now more recently I've noticed the video generating technology is crazy. I mean, it's just it's making things that it just takes some prompts, right? Some words to create something that is absolutely incredible in terms of art, without the need of skill, of paintbrush, or of time, and in terms of video, without the need of actors or of voice actors or of even filming. You know, I mean, it's insane.
Why they've gone after all the creative, very human ways to explore and express ourselves? I'm not sure. Why did they go after the accountant? But yeah, sorry, carry on.
But it's a good question. Yeah, I'm wondering that myself, and I honestly don't. I don't know what it means. And this is something that really stands out as a question. I have no idea what this means. What does this mean for artists in general, or for the way that humanity from this point forward is going to perceive art, right? Because if you go and look at the Sistine Chapel, for example, you know, or of any of the old works of the great masters, they are in the greatest museums on the planet for a reason. You know, they are a representation of skill and also idea, right? So I don't understand where we are now when it comes to this, and I don't understand what this means going forward. So I'm curious to know what your thoughts are on this, especially because you are a more sort of traditional artist in this sense. You don't do digital, you do ink on paper and actual watercolors, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. So so I'm curious to know what you think about this.
Are you asking me what this all means, Alex?
I'm asking.
Can you ask a hard question?
I'm not necessarily what it all means, but I guess what your opinion is on it, and what do you make of it, and what does this how does this make you feel personally?
Yes. So yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? So it's obviously it's on a lot of our minds, conversations on pretty much every podcast as well. Like AI will feature because it's really interesting. So without maybe to go back to what I'd said already about sitting on the fence, let's look at I'll maybe go into the pros and cons maybe of how I see it anyway. So so like you said, I mean the technology is rapidly improving. The videos, like there's some of them I actually really like. It's kind of like a weird like a fever dream. It reminds me of like nightmarish type visions that you might have, which I find quite interesting. That it's like being created by something that's not human. So maybe it's mimicking kind of how our subconscious thought kind of works in a strange way. If it can recreate almost kind of dreamlike sequences. And obviously this comes from the prompts from the people that are creating it too. And maybe they feel the same satisfaction that someone feels when they finish a painting. I don't know. I would probably doubt it, because and I might be I might be wrong about that. If you're physically doing some painting, you've invested a lot of your time and effort into learning very particular skills, and then actually painting something to a degree that you're happy with, and perhaps like layering it with all the things that you want it to mean. So, and the kind of, I guess the payoff of the journey, not to sound like a hippie, but it's the doing, it's the fun bit, it's the rewarding bit. I think everyone kind of knows this. Like if at all you've spent time creating a bit of work, and then let's just not even have you don't even have to exhibit it if you just post it online. Like the kind of, at that point, it's gone. It's the excitement around it. You kind of feel like that's the bit you're working towards, but it's actually the making of the work that was the enjoyable bit. So I would probably doubt that it's maybe quite as rewarding for people creating or prompting the AI art. In terms, I mean, obviously, when you met my friend Paul Canavan, he works as a digital, an amazing concept artist, digital artist, and he told us directly that jobs are getting lost in his industry, and although they can't maybe say it directly, people kind of know in the grapevine that it's because they're using AI to create the kind of loose concepts. So, I mean, that's obviously not a good thing. And some people might argue that AI will create more jobs that are just different. But if you're taking away the kind of creative process, the bit that I was just kind of talking about, then it's not going to be as enjoyable for the people doing it, I wouldn't say. And it also is quite reliant on, I guess, reliant on technology to harvest ideas off the internet and collage them together. I suppose there's another something worth mentioning as well. Like obviously, I have no idea how it's all going to pan out. Someone had speculated that I think it's like in 10 years' time. I'm kind of making up these numbers now. Like let's say 10 years' time, over 50% of the content online will have been generated by AI.
Yeah.
Right. So this doesn't mean that it's just doing it on its own. I hope it'll be from prompts from very particular people. I don't think that bodes well in terms of trying to make sense of the world or trying to find any kind of truth.
Yeah.
Well, online anyway. We're maybe past that point already. But if that's the case, in terms of like the AI that's making the art, the AI doesn't actually create new art. Well, it collages from the sources online. That's how it works at the current time, as far as I understand it. So it takes all the images that collaborate with the words that you've prompted, and it'll guess where the lines and colors and pixels should go, and create an image from a database of other artists' work. But if the internet is now going to be mostly AI art, and we can see it just now. It might get better, but like it's not very good with details. Faces sometimes get all mashed together. Hands are famously really bad at the moment. If you zoom in on like necklaces or brooches or any kind of fine details, it's just kind of like spaghetti. It's not. It's not actually thought out. So if that is what it's gaining its resources from, it's going to start, like, surely it'll start to cannibalize itself a little bit, and these things are going to be taken less from reality or like photo or like an artist's like a human artist's work. If it's just going to be harvesting from its own, then there's like a what's the word, an exercise that some people do where you draw a portrait from a photograph and then you copy the picture, the portrait that you did, and you keep doing it. So further down the line, the last portrait that you've done from copying your last piece of work has completely morphed into someone else because you're not going from the source. So much like that, there might be a point where the artwork is cannibalizing its own AI work. So like hands aren't going to get better; they're going to get worse. The details might get, kind of technical term smooshed together. If you know what I mean.
Yeah. Well, this is in regards to the AI that accesses the internet for its resources, but I know that there is also I'm not very clued up on how exactly the technology works, but apparently you can download your own copy of whatever the software thing is, and then feed it your own images. So you can make like a selection of thousands of images and then feed it so it can produce different
So you can
content. Yeah. So you can do it
so you choose
individually.
exactly.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
I
yeah.
see.
So that is a thing that I'm guessing it's quite difficult and complex to do for an individual, but for a company to do that, I'm guessing they're probably already doing it, or it can
Yeah.
definitely go in that direction.
Oh well, I mean, in that case, yeah, that changes things. So
mm,
I guess maybe in terms of like what does that all mean for us in terms of like artists? I mean, I don't think there'll ever be a point where people don't want to see art made by humans.
mm,
I I, I don't think that's an option because for one, you have a lot of people that naturally just kind of push back against it for whatever reason,
yeah.
just because it's like new and it feels like it's taken away some essential part. But also because like when people look at work, like a part of what I like when I'm looking at artwork is to admire the fact that someone else could have done it.
Hmm.
Like to have that type of skill, especially if it like most of the art in the world, it's like beyond the reach of my skills. I can look at it and I can admire it and also aim towards it. I don't think people feel the same way when they look at AI art because obviously it's not another human that's drawn it out. So it might it might still look good and it might still give you ideas and um but it's different. It's losing the context underneath. It's gone.
Hmm.
So I don't think people have much to be scared about when it comes to. I don't think it's going to replace like human art, but in terms of people who work in the industry, obviously it's a big concern, like in digital art. Also, um, another thought just kind of came into my head there.
Hmm.
It's it's kind of going down the same trajectory that I guess we've been going down for ages, which is like convenience, kind of
Mm.
overriding whether it might actually be a good idea or not. So I know Yuval Harari, he he said something that really stuck in my mind as well when he's talking about how we've obviously created technology largely has been used as convenience to make things like easier for ourselves, or at least that was the idea. So like instead of waiting for like the postman or like a pigeon bringing back a letter, you've got emails now, right? So the idea, you can send an email instantaneously now. You don't have to wait on, you could reach someone on the other side of the world and get an answer in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Right. So on the surface, seems like quite a cool idea, and it has been a good idea, but it's not actually worked as convenience because what we've done now is that we've filled the available time in between with more emails. So we've actually like shoehorned in more things to worry about, more things to stay on top of. So the kind of the idea of it being like convenient has maybe just made things more complicated, because it's allowed us to naturally just fill our time with more projects, more things to answer. So in a similar way, it makes me wonder if the convenience of asking AI to type up your CV, or to create your concept artwork.
Yeah.
Is there something they're not seeing that is going to be like an after effect of making that, kind of passing off the responsibility, or cutting down the time on it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Maybe there's a lot of the time people don't consider the repercussions of making things more convenient.
Well, a good question to ask is, what are you doing with the time that you have gained now from the fact that you don't need the concept artist to deliver your sketch in a week's time? You gained 1-2 weeks because you have the technology. So what do you do with it? This is something that really comes to mind. Like, what is the point? Like, what is the ultimate aim? What are we trying to achieve? Where are we trying to go to? Especially when you combine this with and I don't mean to get political with this, because I'm not, but when you combine it with capitalism, which implies the idea that everything just keeps growing forever, and we develop the entertainment industry has only one purpose, which is to make money. So we make more money and faster and more and faster, and it's like, what is the, like, it, is this sustainable in any way?
Probably not.
No, probably not.
I mean, I'm not an expert, but like, there's plenty of much more educated and clever people than me that have talked about it. And you're absolutely, like, from my point of view, you're absolutely right. Like, the kind of system that we live under, with all its benefits, obviously it's managed to, like, there's obvious benefits. So I'm not ruling out that it's like a failed idea. It's maybe not serving people now like it was supposed to. But in terms of like where it pushes the general like entertainment business, let's say. So it's a good example. So, like, some recent kind of superhero films, right?
Yeah.
Let's say they are designed to appeal to the broadest market, right? It's very much like a business mindset that I hate. So
me too.
The broadest market will make it as palatable to everyone as possible. So the age range will be biggest. So that cuts down some of your options in terms of subjects you can broach, or the language you can use, or whatever it is. So that's cut down some of your options in the film. It needs to be stylized. It needs to be quite colorful to keep people's attention. Maybe lots of cuts in there. So it keeps people's eyes drawn to it, of all ages. The storyline has to be fairly easy to follow. So, like, what ends up happening if you do that is it just dilutes any idea. You kind of want people not to like some of your stuff. I mean, I don't know, Alex, what like music you're into, but like, one of the appeals, especially when you're younger, is to find something no one else likes, because you feel like you're, like, that kind of difference in opinion is important. We should have different opinions, and there should there shouldn't be this kind of diluting of like ideas. If there's something that not everyone's going to like, then that's probably quite a good thing.
Yeah.
At least it stays true to like an artistic vision of what you're trying to say.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, so that kind of corporate view. There's also like, I don't want to name any names. There's a Scottish artist that has gotten really famous from treating his art like a business, and it's like it's painful for it's painful for a lot of people to look at. But he's basically just it means it's all the things that we were talking about that we find kind of frustrating. Like it's purely made to just sell and to sit in like on the like a wall of a hairdresser or something.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
not, or like for a hotel to like put it in every room. You know what I mean? Like a generic thing. And like, who am I to say that that's not worthwhile? But it doesn't appeal to me, and it kind of saps and dilutes any kind of what's worthwhile or what could be made in its place.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on this 100%. Probably
just
because
to go back to AI as well. Sorry, that was the whole point. Unfortunately, that is the driver, is for companies to exponentially grow forever.
yeah.
Which I think even like a 5-year-old would be like, well, that's not possible. For something to keep growing forever on finite resources. So fortunately, the push for using AI is because they don't have to pay as many people. So they get to make make more money in the end. So
yeah.
it's not
Forever.
It's not
Infinite.
Yeah, forever.
The infinite money glitch to figure that out. Yeah. Even though it's completely absurd because nature doesn't work that way. You know, nothing grows forever. And this is like a whole other topic that I'm not going to get into, but you know, I think a huge part of the problems that we face in society is because we in the world really is because we think ourselves separate from the cycles of nature, which are cycles. It's birth, growth, death, and then rebirth, and something needs to die for something else to grow again. And I think this is definitely something that we are our artificial world is very ignorant of, and it's something that's worth understanding a little bit more. But on the back of that, I'm curious to know if you have any given the experience that you have as an artist and working here in Scotland for the past years, and your experience with exhibitions and with the art world in general, and given the complexities of the modern world, I'm wondering if you have something to say to maybe the next generations of artists or younger artists that are might be listening to this, and you know, they look around and they see this overly complicated world, and they're wondering like, what, you know, what am I supposed to do here now that that this technology can generate images faster than I can? You know, and if I want to make a living out of this, if I do want to become an artist, and maybe they're thinking like, well, there's no point given what's happening. I'm wondering if you have any words to share for them.
Well, I guess there's a few things.
Mm-hmm.
I would say, so we touched on it before. So I would kind of concentrate on creating art for yourself at the start, and develop the skills, just the kind of basic skills in drawing and color studies and all the very basic things, the foundations of art, because it still transfers. I mean, I used to do digital art with just using Photoshop, and it's actually quite a good way to learn still about color, and that weirdly can it can translate into real life painting without having to spend money that you might not have on loads and loads of oil paints. So it's a good way to learn about color as well. So I would say, learn the technologies as well. I mean, if you're growing up now, like we're not going to be getting rid of any of the kind of digital artwork anytime soon. So it's probably important for you to understand how it works, and not to fall behind, because I mean there's lots of people who feel like that's a very hard mountain to climb because they've left it too long and they feel like they don't understand how these programs work. So I think it's important to stay on top of at least one or two digital programs, at least have a loose understanding of how that works. So that's kind of on a kind of technical on technical terms, but I mean there's lots more. I mean, I would say, again, going back to what we said at the very beginning, to echo that, if you're an artist, it's important to have as many, or maybe even when you're not an artist, but go out and talk to people. That's really important. It's hard to get inspiration and ideas if you're not experiencing different things, if you're not talking to people, if you don't feel feel all the emotions that it's hard to feel all the emotions if you don't leave your house, and I know that's difficult for a lot of people, but learn, or make friendships and be a part of communities. I think these are all important aspects of getting ideas, and also finding where your place artistically is. Maybe you want to be a community artist. There's a place for that, helping other people, creating artwork for the place that you live. That's important. There's loads of that going around just now. There's lots of funding for that type of thing, creating murals and projects within that. So that's an avenue worth exploring too. And it's hard to do that if you don't have the kind of social skills that you could develop from just going out and talking to people. So I think from that, talking to people also is important. If you end up getting to a place where you show your work, it's important to be able to talk about it a little bit. And so, like, the kind of social side is almost just as important as the technical side, I would say. And you're not going to be perfect. No one's perfect at any of these things, and I certainly am either. But so that would be another wee bit of advice, is just to go out and talk to people and experience different ideas. In terms of looking how complicated things are just now. I mean, I've got two young children, so this is kind of on my mind. How am I going to help them navigate the world? As time goes on, it's quite complicated. Maybe, in terms for them, I guess the most important thing I could do is to give them a skill set that can help them distinguish what's likely to be true and what's not likely to be true. And I think that's probably one of the most useful skills to have at this time, is to be able to sense when someone is trying to sell you, like snake oil. There's a lot of that going around on the internet. Lots of elixirs that'll help save your health. And I mean, I don't know enough about all of those things, but I do know that they can't all be true. They can't all be true. So, so just to, in terms of navigating the complicated world online, maybe just read more books as well. It's probably quite a good idea. Let's think. There's probably more that would come to mind, but I guess learn the basic skills because they apply to other things. Go out and meet other people, experience other things, other ways to live. I think these will carry you even through the AI age. You're still there's probably still those skills still apply, even if you end up working alongside AI in a job, which I'm sure will start to happen after a while. So
yeah, I guess it's already happening. Yeah.
So that's probably it. Try and just enjoy it as well. That's the I guess the one thing that I didn't say that I quite often say at my work is find whatever it is that makes you do the work. So it's quite hard to self-motivate, and it's been I've made loads and loads of mistakes, not from not charging the right amount, because most artists don't value their own work, so they'll spend a whole week on something and just be like, yeah, sure, 20 quid or something. Because they don't see the worth in themselves. So force yourself to if you are going down as a job, you're going to have to get wise to that, and there's lots of what's the Scottish artists, what's it called? Union, Scottish Artists
right.
Union. That's a great resource for artists living in Scotland. It's like £6 a month or something. I'm not trying to promote the Scottish Artists Union, but there's some benefits from it. And online, it will also give you rough ideas of what people at your stage of a career are charging for their work per hour, per day. So that's a really useful resource to have.
Yeah.
Definitely look into that. And yeah, find the meaning is what I was saying before that. So for me, having a concept, the idea is the thing that gets me motivated. For you or for someone else, it might be just getting a big bit of wood and slapping paint on with music blaring. Whatever it is that makes you get up and want to do it. Do it. Concentrate on that and make that the thing that drives you.
Yeah. So find the meaning in your own art, but also work on your social skills. Work on being out there in the world, and not spend your whole time looking at AI art and panicking about it.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Well, I mean, there's not much you can do about the progress of that. So in a kind of more stoic kind of way of looking at it, don't concentrate on the things that you can't change, but be willing to change as well, and keep yourself kind of open-minded. I think that's the best I can come up with.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
Maybe one last thing. Sorry,
sure.
Alex. Another really important thing.
No, go ahead.
Which most artists, or in any kind of creative thing, is to get used to criticism and because it can put someone off for their whole life. Maybe get some bad feedback from an art teacher, and then that's them. They've packed it in. It's so difficult at the start not to be defensive and to think that you know best, but it's so important just to learn that not everyone's going to like what you do, and that sometimes it's worth listening to someone's advice. So that would be the last thing.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah, humility. I think that's
Yes.
that's really important. Yeah, humility and also respect, I would say, because again, the theme that I'm talking about here is the idea that, you know, you're in a conversation, you're in a conversation with forces that are beyond yourself, literally. You know, the unconscious demands respect, I think, and that goes in a way both in terms of you thinking that you're above it, which you're not, but also you're not below it because it's speaking to you as an artist. You know, it's giving you things. So I think it's really important to acknowledge that relationship that's happening and not throw it into the bin just because it seems that the world isn't recognizing it. I think
Yes.
that's yeah. So in terms of your your socials and your website, and if there's any ways for people to find your work and to support your work, where would they go? What would be the best place for them to find what you do, as well as if you have uh, any prints. I know that at the exhibition, the artworks that were part of the Modern Dragons are for sale. So I'm not sure if that's still happening, and if it is, like, where would people be able to find them?
Excellent. So the website is gordycraw.com, and you can find me on Instagram and Facebook and Threads under the same name, so Gordy Craw. I've also got a YouTube channel, which is kind of more in its infancy, but if you're interested in any of the ideas from Modern Dragons, there's small walkthroughs of each one with me giving kind of a loose explanation of why I've chosen the images that are there. So
Awesome.
it'd be cool if you could visit that too. And from there, you'll see on social media as well. You'll see any upcoming exhibitions, and yeah, I think that's it. I think all the information is there.
I'll make sure to well, it's awesome that you have a YouTube channel. So this is definitely going to be featured on this channel. And I'll make sure to put the links for anyone down below. And just as a last thing, maybe if you have do you have any exhibition planned next for the near future, or if you have any announcements that you'd like to make for anyone listening for any event?
So I'm still trying to organise showing Modern Dragons elsewhere. So there's a few places still in Scotland that I'm hoping to show, but as of yet, I don't have any dates for those.
Okay.
In terms of like future projects, though, I think there's a couple of loose ideas. So I think the exhibition before this was told as a story, and it was quite personal, but it was also quite powerful for people. Well, unexpectedly, it was quite powerful for people that came to see it. So I think the next project is going to tie in the power of telling a story, and I'd like it to probably be a more hopeful narrative. So maybe one of resilience. But I'd love to talk to you about that at some other time, probably.
Yeah.
But yeah, just keep eyes on the website and then Instagram, etc. And I'll always be regularly posting up whatever I'm doing anyway. So
awesome, perfect. Yeah, thank you so much for this. Yeah, was there anything else that you wanted to add?
No, not at all. I was just going to thank you. Thanks, Alex. It's been a really, really good conversation. I really appreciate you coming out to the show, and I hope we can do it again. Future.
Yeah,
that'd be nice.
Yeah.
I think we've got more to talk about.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much for being part of this. It really means a lot to me.
You're welcome. All the best for future shows.
And as usual, thanks to you for being here and listening to this episode. I really, really hope you enjoyed it. And if you have found this conversation interesting, I would highly recommend you go and check out more of Gordy's art. Aside from the artwork that I featured here, he has some absolutely incredible works, especially in his Modern Dragons collection. I would really, really recommend you take a look, especially at the finer details. There's a lot of intricate details in each one of his artworks that are really, really worth looking into. And if you're listening to this on YouTube, please like, subscribe, and share. You know how the algorithm works. Any sort of help is appreciated. And check out the links below. And if you're listening to this on Spotify, do the equivalent, please. And if you'd like to keep up with everything else that I do and any new announcements coming, as well as future episodes, check out my Instagram. I usually post updates over there, as well as new art, and more links and writings and different conversations about very interesting things. And I will see you in the next episode. Take care.